Welcome to the assessment of Ora Doors. Going through this one is a practice for the actual assessment that you'll do shortly. So Ora Doors is a business that is creating doors for the Justice Hub, and you are required to fill in this information based on the estimated figures. So firstly, what we're going to do, and open up your spreadsheet, is we're going to estimate what our overheads are. These are in advance. And it helps us, gives us cost drivers here. So estimated overheads, I'll just click on equals, it makes it faster. We've got indirect labour cost, we've got the depreciation, and we've got the other factory overheads. Note the administration and marketing costs are not an overhead, so they don't go in here. The indirect labour cost is 6,000. The assembly, the indirect labour is 10,000. The depreciation is 18. Remember, these are estimates. A lot less in the assembly department there. The overhead, 3,400. So these are our estimated costs in these departments that we have to do for the start of May, for the month of May. We're using machine hours here because it's capital intensive. Manufacturing in the joinery, and labour intensive in the assembly, so we'll use direct labour hours there. That's given to you on the sheet. So the estimated driver, the estimated machine hours is 1,800, and the estimated labour hours is 1,650. So therefore the rate that we're going to apply overhead is the estimated total cost divided by the estimated driver, and you can fill that across. Estimated total cost divided by estimated driver. So this means for every hour that we work on a job, the machine works on a job, we're going to charge $14.89 in overhead. And in the assembly department, for every hour worked on it by direct labour, evidenced by the timesheet, we're going to charge $9.94 of overhead to that job. So now we go to the Justice Hub, and the Justice Hub gives us some figures down here, and these are the departments. So materials used in each, the labour, we've got 356 multiplied by $32 an hour, and here we've got 900 multiplied by, how much are we paying? 26. So that's the direct labour cost. The overhead here is equal to the machine hours, because that's our driver. In this case, it's 700 multiplied by, and we're going to click on that, 14.89. And the overhead in this department is going to be the direct labour hours in that department, multiplied by that 994. And so just auto sum those two. So in order to do the doors, it actually costs us 45,000 in the assembly department and 80,000 in the assembly department in order to make those doors for the Justice Hub. The total cost, we're going to add those two together. The markup is 120%. Now that markup has to cover administration costs, selling, distribution costs, financial cost, and a profit for the owner. The total cost, the total, we're going to add those two up. To give us a subtotal, the GST is going to be that times 15%. So how much the Justice Hub is going to pay us is the subtotal plus the GST. Happy with that, we'll scroll across. The journal entries. This is the cost for the Justice Hub. So the cost for the Justice Hub, the work goes into work in progress for the, I believe that's the joinery department. And the cost we've got is here. It's made up of Which one? Materials first. Labour, which comes out of the payroll. This is the direct labour. And the overhead. So that's transferring all the costs into the job out of materials, labour and overhead. Then what happens is that we've got to transfer it out of the joinery department into the assembly department, because the assembly is where they put it together after it's all cut up. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in putting it into the assembly department and out of the joinery department. So all that, oops, goes out of the joinery into the assembly. And then we've got the cost of the assembly department. And that figures at 80,000 there. You can just copy and paste this if you like. So the raw materials, 48,000, direct labour, 23, overhead. Then when the job's finished, it goes into the shop, ready for the customer to take away. So the shop is called finished goods. If you're a service business or it goes directly to the customer, you won't have finished goods. And that's going to be those two added together, total cost of the job. And it goes into finished goods and out of the assembly department. Cost of the job. Good. Then what we do is transfer it to the customer. So to the customer they become cost of goods sold. So this is an inventory cost to us now. And it comes out of finished goods. It's no longer in the shop. And then lastly we'll record the sale. So the sale of the Justice Hub we'll put, assuming they don't pay us cash straight away, and that's going to be the full amount made up of the amount excluding GST and the GST figure. Okay, on to the last part. Last part's factory overhead. So this part here is pretty easy really. We're going to put into the overhead our three overhead costs, which are indirect labour, depreciation and other factory overhead costs. Here we're going to use the actual figures. So these are these figures down here. So the indirect labour costs was 6,000. The depreciation in that department and the other factory. We'll keep a running balance. It's a debit balance. So as our costs are added, our balance will go up. And then what we do is we apply it to the department, and this one goes to the joinery department. Now probably this is the hardest bit of the lot. So what we do is we look at, we're using machine hours here, so we're going to put the rate there multiplied by the actual machine hours that we used in that department. Notice that it's below what we expected. So what this means is that we have a balance here, which means that we've under-applied the overheads. We had $26,000 of overhead, and we only applied $25,000 of that. And so we're just going to close that to cost of goods sold. And we finish that with 0. Finishing department, the assembly department will do the same thing. So again, we can just pretty much copy all of that. Don't know if this will work. No, I don't think so. So we've got the same things here, except that's going to say work in progress assembly. Right, and these figures are the actual figures again. So indirect labour costs for the assembly department, the actual figures, make sure you grab those ones, 8,000. The depreciation in the factory was 3,000. And the other factory overhead, 4,000. Keep a running balance. Right, so that's the easy bit. Tricky bit is this bit, the amount applied. So remember the rate is 994 multiplied by how many direct labour hours did you actually spend? So find direct labour hours, 1800. And that was more than we expected. So what happens here, don't make this a negative figure, it just changes to a credit. So it means that we had actually $15,000 of overhead. We applied 17,000, so we over-applied our overhead. We've got to bring that down to 0. And that is the entries. Good, hopefully managed to get all those done. I'll get the report in the next video.